Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I want to do a little something different. I've been playing healer since I started 14 about 2 years ago, and I've seen people who probably understand their class as a healer, but not so much as their role as a healer. So today I want to talk about the healing as a role, some skills and skill use, some do's and don'ts when healing, and how to not wipe your party on easy pulls. And this is going to cover low-level healing, since that's where you build your basics. But first, I think we need a change of wardrobe. Ah, there we go. Alright, so let's talk about some skills you'll encounter in your early level dungeons. Cure, Physic, or Benefic, depending on what class you're playing, is going to be your bread and butter for most, if not all, of the game. Early game, it can be pretty powerful. Depending on your level and your gear, and the level and gear of your tank, this can easily heal 30 to 50% of their HP every time you use it. Medica, Helios, and Sucker, are really good AoEs for topping off the team and recovering from a medium-sized blast. Don't spam it though, but we'll talk more on that later. Raise, Resurrection, pretty self-explanatory. It brings them back to life. Not much more to talk about there. Isuna, Leeches, or Exalted Detriment, depending on your class, is pretty self-explanatory as well. It takes off a negative status effect, and that's about it. Scholars, I'm very sorry, you don't actually get this skill to level 40. So from here, we're going to move to skills that every healer needs, but that must be acquired through the White Mage class. Each of these skills can be cross-classed once they are acquired, the first of which is Protect. Protect creates a barrier around all allies that reduces incoming damage for 30 minutes. Use it at the beginning of the dungeon, and again when it wears off, or if someone dies. The next skill is called Stone Skin. It puts a barrier around a single ally that can last upwards of 30 minutes, and soaks an amount of damage equal to 10% of their maximum HP. This is good to have on DPS to curb some of the occasional damage they take from AoE, so you don't have to take your attention away from the tank. Don't feel like you have to keep reapplying this all the time. Just do it when you can. Early level dungeons, this won't matter too much. The next skill I'd like to talk about is called Cleric Stance. It isn't actually a healing skill. It swaps the mind and intelligence stats on your character. Intelligence governs the ability to do magic damage to enemies, and mind governs the ability to heal allies with healing skills. Normally as a healer, you have a higher mind stat for healing, and a lower intelligence stat for doing damage. But when you use this skill and swapping them, it allows you to do more damage, but you do less healing. When you get more comfortable at healing in general, practice switching over to Cleric Stance and toss out some damage spells to help your clears go faster. Then switch it back off to keep the healing going. Now, while we're on the topic of White Mage skills, I want to specifically talk about Fluid Aura. When in a dungeon, don't use this skill. It pushes away an enemy in range and temporarily binds them so they can't move. Tanks and melee DPS have to chase the enemy to either do damage or maintain aggro, while ranged DPS still get to do free damage, which causes the tank to lose aggro. This can be very stressful early level when tanks don't have their tank stances, and we'll talk more about that. The last skill I want to talk about is called Swift Cast, which again isn't actually a healing skill. Now this skill can be gotten from leveling a Thaumaturge, or a Black Mage, up to level 26. It makes the next spell you cast have a cast speed of 0 seconds, which means it's instant cast. This is very, very good for when you need to raise the tank because they died, or if you need the next healing spell to go through right away. Now that we've gone over some of the skills, let's talk about when to use them. My personal rule is the 75% rule. If your tank is over 75% health, you don't really need to spend the mana healing them, especially in early level dungeons. Practice pacing your healing so you don't blow through your mana quickly, but also that you don't pull aggro from the tank. Tanks at dungeons under level 30 don't have what we call tank stances, kind of how Cleric Stance is your DPS stance. Paladins don't even get theirs till level 40. Being in their tank stance, they do reduced damage, but they generate more enmity, or aggro. This makes it easy for them to maintain aggro on the enemies while the DPS beat the crap out of them, and the healer keeps the party alive. Without that stance, it's much harder for them to maintain aggro on multiple enemies. If you're constantly spamming heal on the tank, you're going to be pulling a lot of aggro from them, and it makes their job a lot harder. Enemies that don't have aggro on a specific person generally have their names yellow. As soon as someone hits them with any skill, ability, or auto attack, their name will turn red to signify that they have been aggroed. Now, non-aggroed or enemies with a yellow name can still be attacking someone, but as soon as someone deals damage to them, or you heal the person they're attacking, they'll immediately generate aggro and turn red. Let's see that in action. This ties me into something you'll see in dungeons later on in the game, are tanks that will pull more than one mob, or group of enemies. With them having their tank stance, it's easier for them to maintain aggro on larger groups of enemies at once, so make sure your tank has stopped pulling and has generated aggro on their enemies before you start healing. Play that by ear though, don't let them die. Now, there will be times when you accidentally take aggro from the tank and the enemy start attacking you. Many healers that I've seen over the years will panic and start running around in circles trying to outrun the enemies and heal themselves like a magical headless chicken. Like this.
Smart sound.
Now the problem here is that while you're running around praying to some foreign deity for sanctuary, your tank is chasing you and the enemy, fervently attempting to regain aggro on the enemy so it isn't hitting you. At the same time, the melee DPS are also chasing you because they want to keep hitting the bad guy. While all of this is happening, the ranged DPS get free damage on the enemy, and generate aggro that the tank still can't mitigate because they can't hit it. In order to stop all this madness, if you take aggro, just run to the tank. Bring the fight to them. If they are paying attention at all, they'll pick up on the lost aggro, and the fight will continue as normal. Again, please don't spam healing unless you're absolutely dying. Give them some time to generate that aggro back. The only thing I have to say here is don't stand behind the tank. This doesn't come up often, but I've seen healers that stand practically on top of their tank with their Notice Me Senpai t-shirts spamming heal, only to get cleaved by an AoE and die shamefully. Give the tank some space to do their job, and everything will be fine. If your tank dies, 98% chance you wipe. Keep healing them. If your DPS dies, you'll be fine. Res them if you can, and Swiftcast is really good here. Sometimes they just respawn themselves and run back to the fight, which is fine. Losing stats after res can be annoying, and we understand. These are all the tips I have for anyone who wants to learn the basics of healing. Feel free to leave any other suggestions you have in the comments below. Like this video if you think it was helpful and subscribe to my channel. I'm thinking of doing a Tanking 101 video as well, so let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.